Usually this thing should restream, hopefully, for Tuesday. Usually there's another notification that pops up like a little bit later if I'm trying to start the stream. Just for video editing reasons, I always kind of end the stream on the day that it's ending. So today's the 7th of Tuesday. So you have to restart the stream and start the stream order. But yeah, one video at a time, try to save humanity. Science doesn't give two shits. Science doesn't give a fuck about how you feel in the face of facts. So checkmate, all meat proteins are carcinogens. We've already found the cause of cancer, sugar. So by reducing or eliminating sugar in your diet, you can greatly reduce and eliminate any kind of growth or cancers in your body. And so people talk about like a ketogenic diet. So yeah, it does work. It does work. Dr. Berger is correct. Another dude doing his thing, which basically by going on a ketogenic diet or cutting sugars, you will eliminate or reduce the possibility of cancer in your body. Which is incredible, in my humble opinion, but everything we've seen just kind of just points back to that. The moment you just reduce your sugar intake, which is going to be extremely hard for a lot of Americans because they are addicted to sugar. That's probably the current problem, is bringing awareness and admitting the fact that humans are addicted to sugar. And so people are like, what? So, you know, the further and faster we can get Americans to like stop eating fast food, reduce their intake of sugar, which means cutting back on ice cream. I guess you could have ice cream like once a week or something, but I imagine there are Americans that drink soda every day. They drink, they're accelerating, destroying their blood cells, and requires the increased production of blood cells to then replenish those destroyed blood cells. So the consumption of soda, consumption of ice cream, and this happens every single day. So every day Americans are drinking soda, eating candy, and eating ice cream. And it's the overconsumption of sugar. Basically, the moment you cut sugar, you cut off the source of its energy for cancer cells to grow. And the overconsumption of sugar destroys your blood cell vessels, reducing the ability and capability of your body to distribute nutrients, and reduction of nutrients, and the proper distribution of nutrients into your blood cells is what destroys any kind of way for your body to then transport and combat any type of infections in your body. So then you're probably like, oh, I'm getting sick, and then what do? You go right back to Whole Foods, not the restaurant. You start eating Whole Foods. So, for example, the moment you get sick, what do you fall back to? You don't start drinking more soda when you're sick. Give me another soda, I'm sick. No. You're gonna get more sick. You're just feeding into the body the wrong set of nutrients. Every single doctor is going to look at you sideways if all of a sudden, let's say you got sick, right? You go back to real food the moment you're sick because your body's like, give me real shit. It says zombified food. So the fastest way we can start getting Americans away from eating fast food, from consuming artificial fats, artificial sugars, artificial sweeteners that overinflame your body, is good. So check this out. People are like, the increase of drinking soda and the increase of drinking and consuming of candy and consuming of ice cream, you are destroying your red blood cells, and then it ramps up your body, in my humble opinion, ramps up your body's ability to then try to replicate and repair and reproduce more blood cells. In the process of now your capillaries getting damaged, they stop and dump their nutrients because they can't do anything else. They're hyperventilating. So now it's like a red blood cell is just like doing his job, grabbing packages, and he's moving down the hallway, and he's getting to his truck, and red blood cell's getting to his red truck, and he's like delivering his packages and nutrients to everybody. And then now all of a sudden he's just like, the red blood cell's like, whoa, I got a Ferrari. And the red blood cell's like, has his packages, and he's just like missing his spots. He's driving too fast. And he becomes overtired, overworked, overdrained. And they start putting packages in the wrong spot. As people don't understand, it is not perfect. The red blood cells are operating based on the type of flow state of their potassium and sodium ion gates. And so if everything is balanced, they're just moving along like it's a dude, like a red dude in a red suit and a red truck delivering packages. And all of a sudden, once you start injecting sugar, the blood starts to like do everything like in a Ferrari mode, and it's missing its spots and not delivering its packages in the right spot, going too fast, tiring out, and it can't see what it's doing. Instead of just flowing and doing everything proper at a good, consistent pace, now it's just like, and in the process, guess what happens to that truck or that Ferrari, the red blood cell? They crash. So they're not infallible. That actually the overproduction of sugar inflames the cells, and they start to break down, and they drop all their nutrients, they drop all their supplies, and then forces your body to then expend more work to then the pellets and any other stuff to start pushing objects to start gaining more nutrients. And then the red blood cells are like, oh, another red blood cell died. I need to grab all this stuff, and now they're carrying too much. And that imbalance creates a lot of problems because your blood cells are the carriers. Dudes in red trucks and red blood cells delivering nutrients, resources to the rest of your body. So when they're carried too much, they can't deliver fast enough, which affects your body in different ways. Air misses their stop because they're going too fast. So let me try to Bill Nye understand biology for everyone. Okay, I'll try to Bill Nye understand biology for everyone. Biology is about being whole. Everything in your body is a circle, quite fucking literally, or stacks of circles. Because they're reverberating off of the same negative and positive ions. In physics, they create a field. The two fields create a plane, and the two planes are circular. So as the sun spins, physics. So what is gravity? Gravity is a field of negative ions. How do we see gravity? We see a magnetic field. The magnetic field is not what you think it is. The magnetic field is a clamping and collapsing of negative ions. And the wave of negative ions are what you see as being in a containment field. And that containment field is just another force field, a force shield, or potential force if you want to get stupid, academical, technical. So everything is polarized. Let's Bill Nye science class, everybody try to educate everyone one video at a time, try to save humanity. You already know that why is there a north and a south pole? Because of ferrous material, or ferrous material. It's binding, it's polarizing. Has a positive and negative. Okay, what is the positive? What is the negative? People call it a force. It's not. The negative field is a collapsing of negative ions. The positive force that generates up is a focus of positive ions. Check this out. Why do negative ions collapse? Why do positive ions fly away? I'll say it again 3 times. Why do negative ions collapse? Why do positive ions fly away? I'll say it a 3rd time. Why do negative ions collapse? Why do positive ions fly away? So the ferrous material is any kind of molten. Okay, I wish I can explain it much more easier for people to understand. Ionic thrust Oh, you feel sick, go hug a tree, Shinrin-yoku. If you're feeling sick, go hug a tree, Shinrin-yoku. If you're feeling sick, go hug a tree, forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku. Hell, go walk through a forest that has pine trees. It will de-stress your children. It will boost your health and your well-being. It will increase your B cells, your T cells, your white blood cells, and top off your immune system. By breathing in the pollen, you don't need to overwhelm or overinflame your body with tree oils, you morons. Sorry, humans are fucking stupid. You need a very small trace amount of pinene off of pollen from a tree is enough. Not 100,000% of the concentration of the ingredient. Morons, idiots, humans are fucking stupid. Because they're not fucking educated. You literally walk through a forest. You have a trace mineral, parts per million of pinene on the pollen is enough to boost your immune system. So when you overindulge, you inflame your body, causing damage. Like, the final didn't save me. No, you fucking idiots. You just 100,000%ed the amount you're supposed to take. Because humans are fucking stupid. I'll try to save humanity one video at a fucking time. I cannot teach to the slowest learner, or we're going to be here since fucking yesterday. If you're sick, walk to a fucking forest. The pinene will top off your immune system. In my humble fucking opinion, I'm sorry. Humanity is stupid. Ionic drive. Let's try and teach the world physics one step at a time in order the way to upgrade humanity. Since 33% on average humans are stupid, another 33% have average education, the other 33% are educated across the board statistically for all humans. Means that either 66% is educated, or you think about it the other way, 66% of humans are stupid. Let's try to save humanity one fucking video at a time. An ion drive. We perfected this tech a long fucking time ago. The problem was the fuel source. So ionization of ion thrusters. An ion thruster ionizes propellant, but actually it doesn't even need to fucking do that. It just needs a field to collect. I hate this terminology because they're just showing you one way that they're incorrectly using ions. That's irritating. Fucking Google, bro. I told their fucking engineers before, I was like, when you know your AI can't show the information correctly, tell it to not fucking show the information. I told them all the time. I told it to Facebook engineers. I told it to other software engineers, Microsoft. I told like those motherfuckers. Like, I told the engineers at Google too. I was like, look, you know when your shit is wrong. You understand the error codes is gonna fucking show you. So since your AI can't show the right fucking shit, make sure the AI doesn't show the wrong fucking shit. Doesn't help fucking anybody. It just makes your company look fucking stupid for all the billions that it has. It is not a propellant. You know why it's not a fucking propellant? Because you don't need gas to create an ion thrust. So you can't have Google showing the wrong information at the most key pivotal time unless they're doing that on purpose. So people don't understand. 100 years ago, you had the Wright brothers do flight. So imagine this, y'all. It's going to be fucking hilarious why humans are stupid. Before, like, 1901, remember, everything had, like, balloons or whatever. So they understood. Humans are so dumb, they understood. They were like, if we could just collect enough of it and create a mini explosion of a torch, it's creating a mini explosion. We're going to catch that explosion in a balloon. We're going to catch the explosion in the balloon. You're heating up a bunch of air and it's volatile. And we're going to ride that little explosion in the sky. That's a balloon. You still need a fuel source. You're creating a small open bomb. And the heat source is emitting a torch. You're heating up the air to a volatile state that wants to expand and explode. Actually, you are causing a whole bunch of mini explosions inside that air in that balloon. A lot of little explosions are going on. Literally riding the wave of a whole bunch of bombs that are really small. But check this out. For ion thrust, Google cannot fucking have its AI show the first thing is incorrect. So 100 years ago, flight was, it's just drag and you're being lifted because it's creating a bunch of micro fucking explosions, and the lift is that. Through the air. The little friction of the air, the drag, the friction of the air. Guess what the drag and the friction is? A bunch of really small fucking explosions. And that wave of force that it generates is the drag that lifts your aircraft. That's why you have carbon scoring on your fucking aircraft. That's why you have all those dudes just sitting around cleaning aircraft from the carbon scoring. So ionic thrust, we've already perfected it. This is a bad design. These are all bad designs. You know why these are bad designs? Because these are all, check out why these are bad designs. These are all propellants, right? I'm going to show you in a second. Google's first thing they showed you, a company that's supposed to be like 900, like a $1 trillion valuation of Google, or supposed to have like $500 billion, $100 billion. The first thing they show you is incorrect. Propellant, incorrect. Off AI, the first thing. It's not a propellant. It's not a propellant. You can have a plane moving with no parts. 5 years ago, from a channel called Real Engineering. They are not moving gas. So Google, the first thing they show you cannot be the wrong information. At the game-changing movement of transportation, people understand, ionic propulsion will move trains, cars, bikes, hoverboards, skateboards, aircraft, spacecraft. No moving parts. It's not a gas. We're literally shifting a force. Negative ions to go one direction and positive ions to lift. Or positive ions to propel and reject, and negative ions to collapse. Okay? As negative ions collapse, they coagulate, and as they coagulate, they force out positive ions. As positive ions lift and escape from a negative ion field, basically that's why they consider it ionic propulsion, but it's only positive ionic propulsion. The opposite of that would be negative ions. And with that, we can do some really cool shit in the future. So ionic propulsion, no parts. Google, like a $1 trillion valuation company, has hundreds of millions of dollars, cannot be showing the wrong information is not a propellant. It's not. It's not a gas. It's not a propellant. Ionic thrust propulsion is the positioning of positive electrons and accumulation of them to reject the field of force of negative ions. That's what makes it so powerful. Because everything has a frequency. Everything resonates. It's a ferrous material. So Google, massive company, AI, the first thing that you're showing you is wrong information. It can't go number one with propellant. So, let me skip this video because I don't hear what I was using.
This episode of Real Engineering is brought to you by Skillshare, home to over 20,000 classes that could teach you a new life skill. Last month, MIT revealed their ion-propelled plane, the product of 7
This has to do with
years of development.
Has to do with, like I said, Wright brothers. Beginning of the 19th century. My bad, beginning of the 20th century, because how they worded it. Everything in the 19th century was 1801 to 1900. Everything in 1901 to 1999 was the 20th century. And now we're into the 21st century. Everything from now going up to 2100 is the 21st century. It's always thought that was confusing, so not to confuse anybody else. But, because you would think when we say 19th century, it'd be everything 1900s. No, it's not. It's so dumb. It's like literally the dumbest nomenclature thing I've ever seen. You would think, logically speaking, that if you were in the 19th century, everything would be from 1901 to 1999. For some reason, we say 20th century. The 20th century is everything from 1901 to 1999. That should be the first indicator of is the dumbest shit, like the stupidest idea. And so, you know what? Culturally, we should probably just change that. And I'm just going to force change that. I'm just going to force change that because I'm just it's the dumbest shit in the world. Whenever I say 19th century from now on, I'm going to change it the way it logically should be said and spoken. So we get rid of it. We just make it more concise and clean and precise and efficient. Oh. Just picture this. 1890. There were no flying jets. There were no flying planes. Okay, y'all. It didn't occur until we didn't have movies, until until it was 1890 or whatever, 1897 or something like that. 1896, 1897. They weren't even real movies. They were just projectors of some images. We literally went from I'll show you a prime example. 2024, 100 years ago, in 1924, I guarantee you they just had some movie theaters where it was literal smoke and mirrors. That is the time frame of the smoke and mirrors. They literally have a play at Broadway and lights. You're in the limelight. Limelights are shining on the people. It's an actual thing. A limelight. These lime filaments. They're so bright. They burn so bright. They're capturing mini explosions and reflecting it back. Goddamn. The heating up of a voltic temperature is igniting the surface air, creating a whole bunch of mini fires. tearing up the voltaic air, the color in the filament is igniting and creating a whole bunch of mini explosions that are constantly happening. But then there's thermal radiation collapsing upon itself. And then there's light. You're heating up air, and the destruction of the air being ripped. Of course, thermal radiation paste collapsing upon itself, and then it ignites, and it constantly ignites, and that's light. And then as the light is generating, it's creating, you're literally ripping apart the air to create more photons. Okay? And then we're reflecting that with like a lime paste or whatever. And you're in the limelight. So 100 years ago, 1924. So they would, a 1924 person would shit bricks if you told them how we're communicating right now. If you told someone in 1924, hey, I am talking to people all around the world through this little device that sits on top of a desk. Dude's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like 1923? He'd be like, what the fuck are you smoking, bro? One, because they didn't have any understanding or concept of science or physics. So now, let me speak to all Americans so they can truly fucking understand. The vast majority of people in 1920, 1940 didn't have any understanding of how any of the shit around them worked. That'll put it into perspective. People in 1923 in America and all around the world had very little fucking understanding of physics or how anything around them worked. And so collectively, with the advancement of technology from black engineers, quite fucking literally, everything you see today dealing with digital photography came from a famous black female engineer for NASA. Everything you see now in terms of mathematics came from even more black female mathematicians at NASA, JPL. Every single thing you see today with our understanding and conduction of computers is the basis of understanding how to control UV light from radioisotopes that were developed from material science by black engineers, specifically one black engineer, the black boy genius from Chicago, Mr. Ernest Wilkins Jr., the greatest mind the world's ever seen. Greatest mind the world's ever seen. He is the grandfather of nuclear energy, of the bomb, and of nuclear satellites, and of everything you see stems from one man who's born in Chicago, who had a PhD at 19 in physics, and later at 21 years old, helped design the nuclear bomb. Was the final key and piece. He was the genius that figured out how to utilize the bomb, nuclear bomb, and then they had 70-something scientists all sign paperwork trying to tell Truman not to drop the bomb, and Truman still dropped it anyways. Because of course they're not going to listen to the black scientists that created the nuclear war. And then once that happened, Ernest Wilkins Jr., everything is powered to then go into nuclear reactors. And so he got his engineering degree in mechanical engineering and in another material science. I think like a chemical. He has like a chemist degree. So he had a chemical engineering degree. He had a mechanical engineering degree. He had a PhD in physics, and he had a few other math, like a whole bunch of stuff, like a quantum physics degree. There's a lot he was doing. He helped form and he helped create the first nuclear reactor. So after they utilized his tech to drop the bomb, he then devoted his whole life, once Truman went against him and the other 70 engineers, he then designed the precursor for the nuclear reactor, and then helped design nuclear reactors that are used for satellites at NASA. And then from that point on, that tech was helped devise and help into the medical field, and for video games, and for PCs and for computers. And Thomas Latimer was the engineer that created the light bulb. So Edison was just like this producer. Edison was just like the founder, co-founder, and producer, and like he just owned a whole bunch of engineers. So Edison had I think 100 engineers below him. It was like some 90-some engineers below him, and Edison didn't do jack shit. It was all of his engineers that were trying to create breakthroughs. You had a black engineer, Thomas Latimer, who created the breakthrough for the light bulb, and he also created the refrigerator unit. So the ability to freeze stuff into a refrigerator in order to transport ice and cold food came from a black engineer. So literally, the refrigerator that everyone uses around the world pays homage and credit to Thomas Latimer, a Black American engineer, in the late 19th century, so 1870s and all that. His life work creating the light bulb and the refrigerator should be known forever. Everyone should know who Thomas Latimer is. He's the individual that created the refrigerators. Everyone can be happy for transporting ice, meat, and food all around the world. The refrigerator you have in your house pays respect to Thomas Latimer. And then the light bulb, electricity, the very light you take advantage of, that the whole world takes advantage of, should know who Thomas Latimer is. Because he's the man that created the light bulb. And so you see the American racism is so powerful that you don't even know who these two men are. You know, the founding father of the light and of the refrigerator is a black engineer named Thomas Latimer. And you don't even know that. You can Google him right now. Because of white American racism, the white American empire. Everything before 1959, kind of 1978. But it all started in 1959, it turned to the 1960s. Thank God for like the hippie movement. Thank God for thank goodness for the women and men that produced the hippie movement, you know, in the 60s. To help spurn a much more liberal America. Literally spreading love and joy. You know, being liberal, being open, being hippie, helped kind of clamp down on the American empire, and actually brought down the American empire. If you just say hippies won. Literally, the hippie movement brought in, they should all be proud. All the older hippies should be super proud because they brought in together with the democracy. So the hippies of the 60s, 1960, you know, started the whole like free love, free movement. So they're just giving out food, giving out free love, giving out objects, being super liberal, helped destroy the white American empire. And you had more intermingling. They didn't give a shit. It was all about love. You know, LGBT community found a place within the hippie movement. That's why they settled here in the Bay Area in the hippie movement. The hippie city, New York City, right? Like, people don't understand. Like, 1960s San Francisco, 1960s San Francisco was not cold and corporate like you see today, like New York City. It was like the arts. They had dancing and craftsmanship and bookstores, free-flowing jazz. Jazz is huge, you know what I mean? There's a big black renaissance. There was a major renaissance movement in terms of black art came out of SF. A lot of jazz artists used to come out of SF. A lot of shows at SF. A lot of artistry, a lot of musicians. San Francisco should be like a music capital. San Francisco should be like a jazz capital. But all that's destroyed by racist white people moving in, other anti-blackness, and it's kind of anti-hippie. A lot of cold corporate assholes moving into SF. And the hippies were too free and honest. They didn't really crunch and weaponize the districts to start pushing out people of color and start pushing out the arts. So they kind of lost their city. But artists, if they come together, like that's why LA is so nice, because LA is like, it's not Los Angeles. It's LA and the surrounding cities are so nice because it's a congregation of a whole bunch of artists. You see more singers. You see more musicians. It's like the place to be. If you want to act or make movies or make commercials or make video games or make art, you want to be in a big city where there's a ton of art galleries, a ton of nightclubs, a ton of music shows, a ton of music events. So the LA and all the surrounding cities around LA is a big 21 up city because the creativity of everyone in their 20s. You try to go to LA, you try to make it to the Bay Area, LA area, New York area, LA metro area. They're trying to make it, but it's mainly the jolt of tens of millions of people in their 20s and 30s that are into the arts. So you have live music. You have shows and plays and dances and nightclubs and that energy, being more liberal. Not so conservative and stuck up and don't listen to this rock music, don't listen to this rap music, don't listen to jazz, don't listen to blues. That stifled growth and creativity. It wasn't free-flowing. It was very stale and bland and stucco and brutalism. It was the modern American empire. So actually, thank goodness for the hippies in 1960 because that progressive allowed intermingling, intermixing. It was already occurring, but much more free love, free-flowing ideas, the art, jazz, rock, rap, beginning of rap and hip-hop all started forming, right, 1960s. So old heads in the 70s are like, yo, we had rap and hip-hop in the 60s. And old heads in the 70s are like, yo, that rap and hip-hop and music and the arts and drama and pop stars. You can also say with the rise of pop stars, too, is more liberalism. Without that space. Imagine if the hippie movement didn't happen, there really wouldn't be that space for that growth. Right? You would try to have pop stars or rock stars, but it wouldn't be as like free-flowing love. It'd be like every kind of city would be like cold and corporate like New York. And you're like, how are we really trying to make music? But it's a combination of hippie movement, free love, free-flowing, more ideas, being more liberal, having more jazz artists, having more musicians, have more nightclubs, just relaxing and being more liberal and open, allow those spaces to flourish. And the other pop stars and rock stars to flourish. But the sad part is, humans are stupid. So we try and save humanity one video at a time. So for ionic thrust, 100 years ago, everyone in 1890 could not conceive of a person sitting in an aircraft flying through the sky. So, and then it ramped up super quick. The moment the military saw that you can fly people, they started dropping bombs. To me, it's so stupid. Because humans are inherently stupid and destructive, dumb creatures. Quite fucking literally. Oh, we can put a person in a thing and be flying in the sky. Let's start attaching guns to it and dropping bombs. Like, what the fuck? Do you know what World War I was? Trench warfare and dudes in the first set of planes being used as weapons. Because humans are inherently stupid and destructive. We are living under the same sky, breathing the same air, and staring at the same fucking sun. Humans are inherently stupid. Humans are their own civil wars. Instead of advancing humanity into the stars, which are our rightful place, is out there building. I already know there's going to be a stupid set of humans that are just like stuck on fucking Earth. They can fuck right off. I don't give a shit. I don't teach to the fastest learner. There's going to be a stupid set of fucking humans that are going to be too afraid to leave the fucking planet Earth. I explained to you why, but we should get to ionic thrust. So, humans in 1890 couldn't fucking conceive of a human being in an aircraft, and then World War I, we have humans attaching fucking guns and dropping bombs like they're fucking stupid. Breathing the same air, looking at the same sun. Just fucking stupid. Humans are stupid. And then conceptually, 30 years after that point, 1915, going up to, from 1911 1917, they started advancing aircraft, started making more armored aircraft, they started killing more people. And in 1940, we have armored tanks and armored jets flying in the sky, killing each other. Breathing the same air, same sky above us, staring at the same fucking sun. Humans are stupid. And then we've only gotten more advanced at killing each other. And people are like, where's our like greatest advancements? They're like all like weapons. Which means, goes back to it again, breathing the same, we all share the same sky, breathing the same fucking air, staring at the same fucking sun. And all we did with our tech was create more advanced fucking weapons. Like fucking A. So, welcome to the turn of the 21st century. So now it's 2024. You're probably about 10 years behind-ish in terms of education for most people. I would say probably most peoples are 10 to 14 years behind in understanding what current tech is. So ionic propulsion is the next leap in technology for humans. Humans are stupid. There are other creatures here on Earth that live longer than us. There's going to be other creatures in the universe that live longer than us. Okay? It's not that fucking complex. Humans are fucking stupid. Because your other aliens are the other creatures you can't communicate with here on Earth. Your other aliens are the other creatures here that are sentient on Earth that you can't communicate with. If you can't communicate with a fucking cat or a dog, how the fuck do you think you're going to communicate with another sentient being on another planet? Oh wait, I forgot. Those are sentient beings here on this planet. Humans are fucking stupid. The whale. Oh, here's a prime example. The cat and the dog and the human are all going to cry. They're all going to serenade. They're all going to show love to their litter, to their children. All three of us are going to follow each other. All three of us are mammals. All three of us have helix DNA. All three of us are warm-blooded. All three of us have brains. Cats, dogs, humans. We still can't communicate with each other. And all three of us are sentient beings. Cats, dogs, and humans. So how the fuck are you going to communicate with another like alien species out there in space when we already have sentient beings here on Earth? Some people treat pets, not even pets, they're other creatures. So how you treat a cat, how you treat a dog, it says a lot about you and a person. But sometimes cats are funny. Like Mara, oh my god, bro. She hopped into my desktop, and she like sunk her claws into the top of the grill and like pulled, and I was like, that was a hilarious moment where I had to like pick her up. And I'm like, Mara, you can't do that. Baby girl, you can't do that. I had to like let her down. And then she just hopped right back on top of the desk and was just like, and I was like, just had to like lift her up again and set her out so she can't be in my room. Because every time she just wants to sharpen her claws, she'll hop onto the desktop and sink her claws into the grill gates and start pulling. And I'm like, I just don't want any kind of damage to the desktop. You know what I mean? If any kind of gamer, hopefully they laughed or they understand my pain. But I love my PC. I like my desktop. It's a good desktop. I always love my PCs. Can't let them down. But I gotta protect my PC from the cat. I gotta protect the PC from the cat. Because the cat, I don't know. I think she's for her, she's like, oh, these tiny holes are perfect for my claws. Let me just, I just I laugh every time I think about it. Silly cat. She doesn't know any better. She's cats doing cat things. I wish I could communicate with the cat and tell her no. And for her, she's just like, I'm still gonna sink my claws into that thing. you know what I mean? Like the cat Mars, she doesn't care because we can't communicate. So that's kind of funny. That's pretty funny. Or what does that sound like? Man, it sounds like humans to humans. Humans are stupid. Sorry. So welcome to 100 years ago, 1915 up to 1930. I need to kind of speed everyone up because 20 years from now, 40 years from now, I need adults now to make good decisions so your grandchildren like you. No, do this. Make decisions now so that your grandchildren love you. Okay? Make decisions now so that when you're surrounded by your loved ones, your grandchildren, that they love you. Okay? The best advice and universal truth I could tell people is date with intention, be open in your feelings, and everything should kind of just work out. You know, just trust your gut, which is like a stupid saying. But so if you want to see someone's character, watch how they treat animals. Trust me. If you're a good, I don't know, in my humble fucking opinion, my bad, in my humble fucking opinion, if you see a human walk up to a horse and how the horse and the human interact, shows you a lot about both person's character. If the horse is afraid to talk to anybody, something's stressing the horse. If the humans, your friends, your cousins, your family members, your mom or dad, or your brother and sister, they're like afraid of horses, usually it's something inside them. If they try to act too aggressive, right, as a human, and dogs do this too. What's it called? How can I explain it? My auntie, her dog at first was like barking at my dad a lot. Well, I'll tell you this right now, my father's not a good person. So the dog saw somebody that has not like a pure heart, and the dog was like trying to defend my aunt, even though my father and my aunt are both like first cousins. But I just call her auntie. She's my father's first cousin. I was like, well, technically, in terms of where you sit, I was like, you're around the same. You're only 3 years different than my father. And you guys are first cousins. I was like, can I just call you auntie? And she was like, yeah, technically. I was like, wait. So auntie, her dog. And then when the dog met me, it was so funny. He was like, he didn't know what to do. And all you have to do is just kind of, present your hands, but in a non-threatening fashion to a dog. So if you take one knee, or you can lean down and you just put your palms out. So for animals, the sign to communicate with them is you show your most vulnerable part, the palm of your hand. So you just show the bottom of your hand. What do dogs and cats do? They always recoil, right? You ever try to sneak a touch into a cat's paw or a dog's paw? Try to sneak a touch onto there. They usually like recoil back because it's like their most vulnerable part. It's their world they stand on. It's the world they stand on. They kind of protect their hands. They always curl up the palms of their hands, right? Try to protect their hand. And if you have the claws out, right, and you try to touch like a cat's limbs, the cat's sitting there and they kind of open one eye, like, why is this human touching me right now? You know what I mean? Like, why is this human touching my finger right now? And then you try to like lift over the paw and try to touch the soft part. They're definitely like pull their hand back, like human, what are you doing right now? Same thing. So you want to communicate with animals. You show them the weakest part of your hand, which is the base of your palm. You present that. It's the weakest point. Because what you're offering is basically like, I mean no harm. And it should kind of resonate from you. It has to come from you. If you mean no harm, if you show peace or kindness to a pet, they'll usually come up and then sniff your fingers or sniff your hand. And then making sure that, okay, you're not dangerous. Because remember, to cats and dogs, the weapon is the hand. So by presenting your weapons in a try to Educate one video at a time. Try to educate, say humanity, because humans are stupid. Pets, it's the thing they protect. It's their weapon and their tool. Their hands. Like us, our hands are our tools, but just different from an animal kingdom point of view. They stand on the palms of their hands, they protect it. Their claws are also weapons. So when you show your hands, it's like you're presenting your weapons as a creature to them in a non-threatening fashion way. Like, hey, you can smell my hands. I'm not going to... But whenever you see a pet, or another animal or creature, like a dog or cat or horse, and how they interact with humans shows you a lot on what's inside the purity or the heart of the human and of the animal if they're distressed by another sentient being that you just can't communicate with. And you see this all the time. Everyone knows this. Hundreds of millions of people around the world understand this, but I have to hit people over the head because they're dumb as rocks. Y'all know what I'm talking about? All right, there are certain cats and dogs. Every cat dog owner will tell you their dog or cat has a personality. Well, yeah, because it's fucking alive. It's a sentient being. Cats, dogs, humans all cry, all have fear, all mourn, all take care of mammals with helix DNA, all communicate, talk to each other. Now, the weird part is that since cats, dogs, and humans all have helix DNA and they're all, three of us can be genetically modified, there is a theoretical, hypothetical situation where we could, as humans, anthropomorphize animals. And we try to think maybe Hollywood's trying to ease people into it by showing like Planet of the Apes. But Planet of the Apes is just a racist movie showing white American empire thinking they're being toppled by black people. So, yeah, no, not that movie. No. More like Homeward Bound or something like that. This is probably a better example. Or you could show Balto or something like that to like your kids or something. A real wholesome movie. I think Balto had some other racist, anti-Russian like thematics into it too, propaganda. But never mind, skip Balto. It's still kind of distributing hate. And Disney didn't do anybody favors either. Disney owes the American public reparations because they demonstrated racist as fuck animations and brainwashed a lot of fucking Americans. So even Disney itself owes reparations to all Americans for brainwashing and propagating hate through the racist fucking cartoons to tens of millions of Americans. How about that? Them apples. There you go. So I'll try to save humanity one video at a time. Bada boom. Oh, not my best. Not any reparations. More like every single other fucking family can then, literally every single other fucking family member in America, every single person in America can now sue Disney. And then sue the federal government and the state government for even allowing Disney to then produce racist cartoons for their soldiers, which then brainwashed millions of soldiers, which then affected society. And as those soldiers left World War II in Vietnam, watching racist Disney cartoons growing up, propagated, what was that? Instigated and propelled racism forward. Oh shit, how about them fucking apples? I don't miss motherfuckers. God damn. That's some funny shit. Alright, let's save humanity. One video at a fucking time. Alright, ion propulsion. 1890, motherfuckers couldn't even conceive people being in the air. 1915, we're in the air. 1945, 40 years later, we're dropping bombs and jets. So your tech is going to move really fucking fast. Your very concept and idea, there was no Super Bowl in 1920, y'all. There was no fucking cell phones in 1920. We barely had comic books. We barely had comic strips and newspapers. Comic books took off for a couple decades and was like amazing. And the old heads that like reveled over comic books is because this was like the cool it thing. And mangas are still pretty fucking cool. So all those comic book heads, hey, it never failed, y'all. Mangas are incredible. It's just a difference of language is not meant to communicate. All the old heads that did comics in America, and comics are still thriving. But comics in America, they kept thinking like, oh, it's waning up and down. They were like, in terms of the art form. No, like mangas are just comics. And everybody loves motherfucking mangas. Like, quite fucking literally. Japan is a whole ecosystem and economy based on tourism from the distribution of mangas because it propels their stories forward. So it's the Japanese creative storytellers telling stories is what people are attracted to. Not the mangaka, not being Nihon, not watching anime. It's actually the stories of Japanese artists telling stories, because a lot of those mangas become what? Animes. And a lot of the fandom is so hardcore about having like a strong mangaka, but it has to do with the artist and the story that you tell. So Disney, as artists and stories that they tell, generated a lot of millions of dollars into billions off of showing racist cartoons to military members in the military in the U.S. and all over the United States, propagating, propelling, and extending hate and brainwashing a lot of Americans. Oh shit! Hey, welcome to fucking American history. And the evidence of, I don't know what Disney lords would not think they're not doing, but we've already have a whole collection of all the stuff they did. So, because they were very proud to animate and show in movies, which were racist, prejudiced stuff for a long time. And then it goes back to the federal government and state governments even allowing the continual hate and propaganda and brainwashing of the American public by propagating of racist cartoons from Disney, shown to the masses across movie theaters in all the states. Oh, let's prepare everybody for flying cars and hover skateboards and no more gas guzzling asshat trucks. Oh fuck, there's gonna be a whole segment of fucking Americans that are gonna be proud of their gas guzzling piece of shit fucking truck. Fucking A. They're gonna be the last vestiges of the continuation and destruction of our climate. Assholes in their gas guzzling fucking trucks are gonna be the last vestiges of the destruction and CO2 of our atmosphere. Fuckers. Motherfuckers. So, ionic propulsion. We've already perfected it. We created the mechanism. But ion propulsion is the accumulation and rejection or the propagation of ions. But they're just positive ions. Because since we have found the signature for positive ions, it means on the reverse opposite end of a ferrous material, there's negative ions. So gravity is an accumulation of negative ions as they collapse, and you're riding the wave of negative ions, being propelled forward like a float with positive ions. People are like, oh shit, why does the Earth have a positive force and negative force? It's the accumulation of positive ions collapsing upon themselves and their waves, and negative ions condensing upon themselves as they fall. They're collapsing, they're clamping down. So, you don't need xenon gas. You don't need gas. You do not need gas. Well, oh my bad. They're gonna say
like, skill.
We'll watch the
Last
video
month, MIT revealed their ion-propelled plane, the product of 7 years of development and the first of its kind. A plane capable of sustained powered flight.
Explain what we're looking at.
This episode of
1890, people had no idea how to put people in the sky, fly in the sky. 1950, 1917, we got people in the fly in the sky. 1945, armored jets flying to the fucking sky. Now, welcome to 2000, 21st century, it's now 2024. You're going to have vehicles that have no moving parts, that do not need gas, they don't need combustion, and you're just shifting and frequency of the very air to a positive ion state, and then the negative ions is it's collapsing and pushing away. So a positive ion, the best analogy to dumb it down like a Bill Nye style is like an ion is like an air bubble inside an ocean of water. The ocean of water is negative ions. So as the bubble is just trying to escape, why is it going up and not down? People are going to say, what? Water in itself, guess what a signature is? It's a whole accumulation of negative ionization. It collapses and it falls. Guess what happens when you have more energy or positive ions collapsing upon themselves or superimposed upon themselves? What do? They rise. So at first, they were igniting gas and then trying to basically, goes back to the filament, goes back to Thomas Latimer and the electrical bulb, using the wrong tool for the wrong job. Filaments are the ignition of destroying the air. A voltaic current. It's creating a whole bunch of mini explosion. You're ripping the air, and the shredding of the air creates photons that collapse upon themselves and then explode. And that light is with the projection of light. You're essentially ripping the air, and air is constant pressure around. You're in a capsule of air. You're in your atmosphere as air. A combination of a whole bunch of other gases. The gases are what? They're igniting. And that ignition, all those explosions, those mini explosions, is tearing the air. And as those waves, the seismic explosions collapse upon themselves, they spread out. And as they're destroyed. And air pressure is always there because we're in our atmosphere, collapsing and falling upon itself. Check this out. Why is it carbon material falls? Not only because it's heavy, because of negative ions. If it had any more positive ions attached to it, it would fly or float or drift away in the opposite direction. Negative ions collapse. Positive ions kind of propel and eject. Negative ions collapse and accumulate and create like a warp bubble. So there's the hypothetical real chance that we can read the energy signature of negative ions, separate the field of negative ions collapsing upon themselves, and then in that bubble do a lot of cool shit. Bada boom. Same thing with positive ions. You do not need a propellant. So what you're going to see here is the tech that's going to the tech that's going to leapfrog humanity forward with ionic engines and with the breakthrough of fusion cell generators. We can now have unlimited energy, and now we have a transportation source. So ionic thrust can create your hoverboards. You can wear shoes that'll make you float. Your car can fly. Your aircraft can fly. And we get rid of these gas-guzzling fucking trucks and gas-powered aircraft. We just saved humanity and stopped all climate change. But there's still going to be a subset of asshole humans that are going to want jet-powered aircraft and gas-guzzling trucks, combustion trucks. And so now you're going to see in the next 20 years how extremely fast and soon. 13 years is going to do like that, and then 20 years is going to go like that. And 20 years from now, some form of entertainment will probably still exist, but how we travel is completely different. You're going to have more ionic engines and fusion cell generators, fusion cell units with ionic thrusters or vector thrust ionic propelled engines for underground capsules or underground trains, underground kind of units that are going to move people around, and your vehicle itself is going to be immensely safer, reducing the human error and increasing AI. So you just get into your 20 years from now, you're getting into your aircraft or spacecraft, whatever, and it's going to be AI generated, AI controlled, and then you're going to just, with its own kind of ion engine and fusion cell generators attached to it, it can take you anywhere, essentially. And so, in 40 years from now, we already talked about it in a previous video, I think last week, so I won't rehash that. But I think I talked for 3 hours essentially on what the solar system is going to look like 40 years from now. But it's a different video. So let's save humanity one video at a time. Let's show everybody what ion propulsion is. So we perfected tech a long time ago. We were just missing an energy source. We had a breakthrough in fusion generation tech 7 years ago. I'll show you. No moving parts, no combustion. We're just shifting and controlling ions. And actually how you generate and create faster aircraft with ions is you need to accumulate, collect, and create a field or containment field to hold as many electrons as you have, and then you can then push that wave band and really generate some fucking kick-ass speed with ionic thrusters. And I'll probably keep a few of the things secret because I'm going to hold on to that, and then the rest of the engineers will figure out the rest. So I'll show you.
Real Engineering is brought to you by Skillshare, home to over 20,000 classes that could teach you a new life skill. Last month, MIT revealed their ion-propelled plane. the product of 7 years of development and the first of its kind. A plane capable of sustained powered flight with no moving parts in its propulsion system. Just as the Wright brothers announced to the world that powered flight was possible, this flight lays down a milestone for ion drive technology that could pave the way to future investment and development. It has the potential to drastically improve propulsion technology. Having no moving parts is a benefit that cannot be understated. Parts can be made lighter, as they no longer need to survive the stress of movement. Reduced stress means reduced maintenance and costs. But perhaps the most immediate benefit we can garner from this technology is reduced noise. With no noisy combustion or rotating aerodynamic surfaces stirring up the air, these planes are like gliding owls, a characteristic military contractors will be eager to take advantage of. But with current limitations, this may take some time to come to market. Let's investigate how this new technology works and where it needs to improve in order to compete with current technology. This technology has been in development for decades now, with many spacecraft already using variations on the idea to achieve highly efficient thrust systems. These engines work on a similar principle to the ion propulsion of the MIT plane, albeit in a very different environment that lends itself to the technology. Take the N-Star ion drive aboard the now retired Dawn spacecraft. This spacecraft used xenon as a propellant because it has a high atomic mass, allowing it to provide more kick per atom, while being inert and having a high storage density, lending itself to long-term storage on a spacecraft. The engine releases both xenon atoms and high-energy electrons into the ionization chamber, where they collide to produce a positive xenon atom and more electrons. These electrons are then collected by the positively charged chamber walls, while the positive xenon atoms migrate towards the chamber exit, which contains two grids, a positive grid called the screen grid and a negative grid called the accelerator grid. The high electrical potential between these grids causes the positive ions to accelerate and shoot out of the engine at speeds of up to 145,000 kilometers per hour. At that speed, even the tiny xenon atoms can provide a decent bit of thrust, but even still, this engine provides a maximum of 92 millinewtons of force, about the same force a piece of paper will exert while resting on your hand. But in the vacuum of space, there is no air to sap away the precious energy we provide. With no drag or friction to remove energy, we gradually build our kinetic energy and gain speed. The Dawn spacecraft weighed about 1,220 kilograms at launch, with a dry mass of 750 kilograms after the propellant had been expended. So let's say it has an average weight between the two of 1,000 kilograms. Rearranging the force equals mass by acceleration equation, we can calculate the acceleration this engine could provide at 0.000092 meters per second squared. A tiny acceleration, but multiplied by a week, and our spacecraft is flying at 55.6 meters per second. Multiplied by a year, and it's flying at 2,898 meters per second. That's 8.5 Mach. The latest generation ion drives, dubbed the Next engine, can produce 3 times the force and have been tested continuously without stopping for 6 years straight here on Earth. That's enough force to accelerate that 1,000 kilograms to 44,651 meters per second, 130 times the speed of sound. This is an incredible technology that will revolutionize how we explore space in the near future, but here on Earth it has a completely different set of challenges. Here on Earth, planes pose a completely different challenge. Air will continuously sap away any energy we input into our vehicle through drag, and so we need to create an ion drive that can provide more energy than air can.
And the reason this is important, that a device like an ion engine that produces ionic thrust, an engine can last 6 years, is so that if you start deploying, like in a Star Wars terminology, like communication buoys out into space, they can basically have a nice shelf life of like 6 years. With current tech, we're probably going to increase that shelf life of those engines to last longer than 6 years, but still that allow for communication buoys and any kind of other relay stations in space at a nice kind of interoperable lifespan, so they can still send repair teams out or more drones or droids out to go repair it.
Remove while traveling fast enough to achieve flight. Not an easy task, and the fact MIT have managed it is mind-blowing. Let's see how they did it. They first needed to optimize their plane design for the application, reducing weight to minimize the energy required to maintain height, and minimizing drag to reduce any energy losses to the air. They did this using something called geometric programming optimization, which allows designers to specify constraints and design criteria to a program, which will then find the optimal design. After running multiple computer simulations, they settled on a plane with a 5-meter wingspan and a weight of 2.56 kilograms. It would require a flight speed of 4.8 meters per second with a thrust of 3.2 newtons. 3.2 newtons is vastly more than anything achieved by the N-Star or Next engines, but they don't work in entirely the same way. Ion drives for space need to carry atoms to be bombarded. Within Earth's atmosphere, there is no shortage of atoms to ionize and accelerate, and this helps counteract some of the negatives of the drag they also induce. The plane's propulsion comes from an array of ion drives carried below the wing. The positive anode was a thin steel wire, which helped minimize the drag it induced, while the cathodes were foam aerofoils covered in thin aluminium, these being light and capable of producing lift to offset their weight. In this case, nitrogen is ionized and attracted across the electric field, induced by the 20,000 volts of electric potential between them. The nitrogen ions collide with neutral air molecules along the way to provide additional thrust, creating something called...
Correction. It's positive ions want to reject, float, and fly away from negative ions that are condensing and flowing in the opposite direction. The positive ions are moving like an air bubble in the water, trying to get away from the collapsing, condensed water. Water is going to collapse and fold upon itself. Like negative ions are collapsing and folding upon themselves. So, positive ion is floating and flying through massive density. Negative ions are everywhere. And it's trying to escape from that position.
Called ionic wind. Getting that 20,000 volts of alternating current is
really
like, the most difficult part.
It's more like ionic
the team
surfing.
had to design their own lightweight, high-power voltage converter to step up the 200 volts of direct current drawn from the lithium polymer batteries. This energy storage conundrum, as explained in my electric planes video,
there's an accumulation of positive ions, and then it's pushing and propelling this way. And then all the negative ions are already stacked everywhere. Negative ions are already stacked and collapsed everywhere. So that as positive ions accumulate and build up, they go from little specks, they accumulate and build up, and then the reverse opposite field. So if one's positive ions want to go another direction, and negative ions want to collapse, that separation is the accumulation of more positive ions just trying to disperse and escape from a negative ion field. They accumulate, they start stacking upon themselves. It's really, if you're doing it like this with a single rod, then you're almost like you're ionic surfing through a sea of negative ions. But there's a different way to do this. You can accumulate and control and condense like an electric plasma field of like an ionic thruster, and then chamber it and squeeze it and then condense it and then use like 3 or more layers of a vector thrust engine design to then control the direction of an accumulation of condensed ions, and that's how you can travel faster.
Really the most difficult part, and the team had to design their own lightweight, high-power voltage converter to step up the 200 volts of direct current drawn from the lithium polymer batteries. This energy storage conundrum, as explained in my electric planes video, is the biggest challenge facing any technology like this. So how does this compare to conventional propulsion methods regarding thrust-to-power ratios? A typical jet engine achieves a thrust-to-power ratio of 3 newtons per kilowatt, while helicopter rotors achieve a power-to-thrust ratio of about 50 newtons per kilowatt. This ion-propelled plane is estimated to have achieved a thrust...
Oh, and stop using like 20 different energy signatures. It should just be, what was it again? Joules. Oh my goodness. Joules is literally a measurement of energy. So I don't know why, I talked about this I think last month, January I think, maybe back December. The fact that this creates the miscommunication. The fact that we have all these other defined definitions and meanings, different words to describe energy and the measurement of energy, when it's all just joules. Not kinetic force, not seismic force, not potential force, not potential energy, and no fucking way calling it fucking newtons. It's literally just joules. It's measuring energy. And only like other. Never mind. I'll get into that conversation another day.
Power ratio
like,
is
I hate
5 newtons per kilowatt. So if we could find a way of powering these devices that didn't require heavy batteries, could these iron propulsion engines be used? Scaling these propulsion methods is...
People are like, what? When you have an electric current, you're measuring its joules of energy. If you have a seismic force, seismic wave, you're measuring its amount of joules of energy. I hate newtons. The freaking just oh my goodness, bro. Oh my goodness, just instead of like it's humans are stupid because you create a horsepower. Like bro, what? Like I'm about to like lose my mind. Why would you still refer to everything as horsepower? It's so dumb. It's literally so dumb. I was like, God damn it. I was like, God fucking dude. I was like, we still see a car. We're like, it's 350 horsepower. I'm like, bro, when's the last time you seen a horse, man? it's like, God damn it, bro. I hate that so much, dude. It's like, it's 230 horsepower. Like, God fucking damn it, bro. Just, God fucking damn it, man. All right, I'm going to go off on tangent about
not
stupid shit that humans do.
Individual electrode pairs have their limit in the current they can pass between them via ion transport, due to limits in voltage and choked flow within the electric field, just as air can become choked within a constricted pipe. This affects something called the thrust density, which is the area over which the thrust is applied. Jet engines have a very high thrust density at over 10,000 newtons per...
Wrong tool for the wrong job, for the wrong problem, for the wrong reasons. You do not need to create drag. You do not need to create drag. You're still using the conventional combustion tech as if for ion propulsion. That's not the way to do it. It's not the way to do it. You can collect and control and then direct the angle or curvature of your ions. And in that curve, you're going to go real fucking fast. You literally would need, it looks like motherfucking Star Wars. Where, quite fucking literal. Like, so yeah, even like this, even these design of the TIE Fighters work because all you're doing is you're going to ionize a material and you're going to direct a curve or an S-band, you're going to control the wavelength and direction of the ions. Quite fucking literally. So it's the intensity of controlling the curve or an S-band along a hole or material, and the material that is touching around it, which are going to be a density of negative ions, like the sun. The reason people are like, oh, it's gravity. Like, it's just a collapse of negative ions. The Jupiter is 1,000 times bigger than Earth. How do you think it's spinning around the sun? The sun is so massive that its nickel core molten core, as it's rotating, if it wasn't rotating, everything would be standing still. If the sun wasn't spinning, everything would be locked in space. Actually, probably wouldn't have any clouds. If the sun wasn't spinning, all the planets would be in a fixed position in space. And then there would be no clouds, and actually there would be no waves. You literally would have the whole Earth water would be like still, and only sea animals would create currents. And in the wake of their forceful pressure of the wave, or as they generate energy through the water, the wake that's generated from the continual joules of energy that are emitted from yourself creates a succession of collapsing and folding waves that interlace and superimpose and then generate more force as they resonate and reverberate off themselves. So your ion propulsion doesn't need anything more, but in order to go faster and to lift heavier objects out of negative ion fields, or what people have conceived to be gravity. Gravity is the density and collection of negative ions as they collapse and condense upon themselves. So the sun is so massive that as it's spinning, its field of negative ions is dragging all the other ferrous material. There's other planets that have nickel core, molten cores that are spinning because the sun is spinning. And actually probably because the Milky Way galaxy is spinning. So we're in the Milky Way galaxy, right? It's spinning, it's spiral. We're a spiral galaxy, and it's spinning, and our sun spins. And then every other solar system within our galaxy is spinning. And then we believe that the whole known universes are all spinning with all their galaxies. And a whole bunch of galaxies within our universe. So we believe that's all spinning in a spiral. And we believe that spiral emanated from the Big Bang. So, for this object like here in Star Wars, the ship, I'll explain it like this. The Millennium Falcon can lift up, right? But in order for it to go zoom, zoom, zoom and start zooming and flying really fast, it has a whole bunch of ionic thrust engines. But the ship itself, the little makeup of the ship, can also have the material to help ionize going up, positive ion. You force the material change. You don't have to force material change. You're essentially positively ionizing the material of the whole ship to point in one direction, the lift direction you're going to go. And then you force the negative ionization, literally force the negative ionization of the material on the bottom. And that equilibrium, that splits, those two force fields create lift. So we can generate positive ions on the whole of a ship. We can direct and control negative ions on a ship. And guess what happens when you direct the forcible curvature of negative ions towards the Earth that already has a collapsing negative ions, or the Sun that already has a collapsing negative ions? They resonate and they bounce and they separate. They're creating lift. Not drag, lift. So there's no carbon scoring. You're slowly floating out of the atmosphere by projecting the same negative ion field towards the Earth. And that curve creates a bowl, and in that space of the curve, doesn't create drag, it creates lift. And ultimately, people will perceive it as thrust. And if you accumulate enough positive ions, you will also create thrust or lift, but not drag. So there you go. So yeah. So tech is coming extremely fast. I hate the word newtons. So the power and band in the material, you create a curve from here, and it would go here and then here. People can see that. Maybe people can't see what I'm doing with the curve. The material is the material. You would create a curve like this, like here to here to here. And in that curve, the wake of that curve creates the fissure in negative atoms and positive atoms, and those ions are going to start pushing on themselves. The ions themselves are an atom. Okay? The very material itself, the air. The very material itself, the air, is being ionized, and the rejection of negative ions collapsing and positive ions want to lift and separate.
The fact MIT has managed it.
No moving parts, non-combustible. Thing is moving 5 meters a second. Damn, so imagine once you get vector thrust engines, imagine once you start condensing and directing the folding of ionic plasma engines with fusion cell generators. You're going to generate a lot of ions in a very condensed, powerful way, and they're going to fly really freaking fast.
Is mind-blowing. Thrust to power ratios. A typical jet engine
they're just blowing up small mini explosions to carve through the air, or like a plane, like a turbine. So jet engines are doing the opposite. You know? Jet engines are combustion, and vector thrust engine is the nozzle control of the gases at the end. For turbines, it's the condensing and squeezing of air to force and create a lipid, which creates a curvature in the air itself. So planes, people don't understand planes with turbines. You're squeezing it into the air. The air creates a slipstream. That slipstream creates a curvature in the air. And then it pulls the vehicle, the weight and the mass, as you're trying to carve and surf through chemical gases which are our atmosphere. Which you don't have to see that anymore. You have to do it anymore. You have to burn fuel anymore. Okay, you have to burn fuel to ignite an engine. People are like, what? We don't have aircraft that have giant batteries that are electric. We have fuel bladders. Fuel bladders. We're burning more CO2. So, remember, private planes and planes in general are the main focus and cause of our, well, we've already found it, the main cause of climate change and destruction of our environment. And polyhydrocarbons in the air. But like Star Wars, the vessel itself, like the Millennium Falcon or whatever, you give me these massive vehicles or whatever. Let's click. Well, let's just give me a vessel or whatever. The hull itself in the ship, you can ionize a positive direction on top. Literally, the hull, like the top of the ship, you can just ionize the very material, the hull itself, and then it'll lift. And if you needed more lift to lift faster, we can control the frequency and negative ions in the opposite direction. But you need a curve or an S-band. You need a curve or an S-band to create a wave that'll then push against negative ions, and that'll create lift. So then you can have your aircraft, your spacecraft, your car can then rise and fall. You can control the direction. That's why the object can just, you can just fly any direction. Because you're shifting curves of negative and positive ions in the air. So you create a band or an S-curve, and that force is sitting there, is propelling against negative ions, and the positive ions will just keep pushing it. Same with you. You can then have, doesn't matter what shape it's in, you can force a curvature of positive ions and collect them, and then it will lift. And if people are like, how are you going to descend? You can then slowly control the release and interval of your curve. So guess what? A bigger curve of ions is going to create more thrust, more lift, but no drag. And a smaller S-curve or a smaller curve is going to create what? Less energy. It'll drop because the sheer weight of the vehicle and the negative ions that are collapsing upon your vessel is pulling it back down. The collapsing of negative ions back to the Earth's core and the collapsing of negative ions towards the sun will pull the object back down.
Achieves a thrust-to-power ratio of 3 newtons per kilowatt, while helicopter rotors achieve a power-to-thrust ratio of about 50 newtons per kilowatt. This ion-propelled plane is estimated to have achieved a thrust-to-power ratio of 6.2.
Remember, because there's people like how the planets, it's not gravity, it's negative ion fields. And planets, because there's the accumulation of negative ions collapsing from the sun, because it has a nickel core that's spinning, a molten core, it's producing its own, what is it? Magnetic field. And that magnetic field is just holding the wave bands of energy as they arc back into themselves. So we understand the Earth has a magnetic field, right? That field is a whole bunch of bands that are holding back all those negative and positive ions, collapsing upon themselves in folds and fields. Like when you're baking bread, gravity, the current definition of gravity is the collapse and interfold and superfold position of negative ions. And since they're constantly collapsing, falling back down to the Earth's core, and same thing with the sun's collapsing a negative ion so massive that all the planets ride the sun's negative ion field. As the sun spins, all of its negative ions are spinning. As the sun spins, all its negative ions are spinning. And then all of your planets that have a field of positive and negative ions are sitting there like a buoy in the ocean of negative ions from the sun as they drift around the planet. And that's why they're in different synchro-orbited kind of positions, flying around the sun. They're like, what's it called? They're all, the planets are spinning so slow and so massive. But like Jupiter is 1,000 times bigger than Earth. And that's why it has 90 moons. Jupiter is 1,000 times bigger than Earth. That's why it has 90 moons, 90. Its own gravity is its own molten core of its planets alive, spinning. As that liquid metal is spinning, Jupiter's own negative ion field is spinning and has those planets that also have, some are asteroids, some are not. Some are moons. A lot of them are moons. Some of them are just kind of rocks. Some of them are large rocks, and some of them are actual moons that have also, their moons are the size of Earth. So some of the 90 moons of Jupiter, yes, some are just rocks. There's asteroids in a position where they can't be considered a moon. And at other times they're, what's it called? Their cores are alive and they're the size of Earth, or slightly bigger, slightly smaller than Earth. And so it's also probably a subject for another day. But it goes back to, they're probably wondering why the Earth has its negative ion field. Well, our planet Earth has a whole bunch of negative ions as it's spinning, and we have the moon really not that close to Earth. The moon's actually really far away. You can see the moon in the distance, right? I mean, it's in its satellite position. And then it's stuck in its own geosynchronous orbit around the Earth as the Earth spins. And it really can't get out. It's in a nice kind of geosynchronous kind of orbit where the moon is going to spin around the Earth and volley around the Earth in an elliptical format, because the sun is also throwing everything. The sun's negative ion field is throwing everything in a giant spiral in a circle in an elliptical orbit. An elliptical orbit could also probably be a signature curvature of the rest of our galaxy, probably. But that's a whole other conversation, because how it would form would be off of another field of energy, as if it's riding that curve, which would probably be our galaxy. And then we could probably focus our galaxy's curve once we find that signature, and do some really cool shit in the future. Like the possibility of hyperspace. Being able to ride the curvature band signature of our galaxy. And that'll create like a highway for hyperspace, for sublight speed. So yes, our technology is going to appear really fast, really quick. Because 20 years from now, you have more flying cars and more robotics, more AI robots taking over blue-collar workforce in 20 years. A lot of white-collar workforce is essentially eliminated because of AI. And then universal income, or the abolishing of income and the creation of just like the living standard. And then we have 40 years from now, kind of the colonization of the solar system. People can draw their dick in the sand. People can draw their dick in the sand and worry about resources here on Earth. I already had this talk like for 3 hours. I did a 3-hour talk like this back in January, a few weeks ago. 40 years from now, you'll have people can't even think about the two toes in front of them. But that 40 years from now, you have families across Earth venturing out and trying to colonize the asteroid belt because there's more resources in terms of the billions of tons of titanium, oxygen, and you can colonize and create space stations and colonies out there in the asteroid belt because there's accumulation of frozen water and frozen methane and nitrogen gas and frozen oxygen and helium-3, helium-2, and helium-1, and every kind of material you can think of: steel, ore, iron ore, titanium, gold, gems, jewels, the crystals you might need later on, or whatever. So the whole asteroid belt has so much wealth that there's so much fucking gold and titanium and platinum and steel to be mined that the Earthlings and our other human counterparts that venture out and other governments are going to venture out and start kind of laying claim and try to lay claim to as many asteroids as they can in the asteroid belt, because you can start building colonies up there because there's already, like I said, frozen water. And so, for example, we're not losing water. Like here on Earth, the water just shifts and moves somewhere else. Now, in that process, the water shifting, moving somewhere else on Earth, it still creates damage. You could try to put a glass sealed unit with like dirt, bugs, insects, fish, and water and plant life, and it can operate for a good amount of time, but eventually the carbon life falls apart because they don't have like a food source. So if you put like crabs and fish in like a sealed glass unit, their food source isn't going to supply. The food source isn't not going to supply their families of fish or crab that are going to be in it. And same thing with insects. Insects will kind of run out of resource. But you can have an enclosed area of glass, like a little ecosystem that have dirt, water, and plant life, and it'll just kind of keep recycling, keep recirculating. So, like I said, with the asteroid belt, there's already frozen water and frozen resources and tons of steel and iron to build space stations and spacecraft. Gases we can collapse upon and collect to build more habitat zones. Frozen water you could, collect. And we can also take water and generate oxygen. We've created devices now, these little units that you put water into them and they produce 100% oxygen out of it. You just got to continue to miniaturize that tech. And so welcome to 2024. In the next 13 years, you're going to have your more flying units in life. More flying units, basically. In 20 years from now, you're going to have your flying cars and your hover skateboards, and you put your shoes on, and it'll just kind of hover you off the ground, you'll go to work, whatever. You'll probably actually just get into your vehicle. You probably won't even get into your vehicle because a lot of the work can be done remotely. And so the way I describe it to people is, give me artists that want to make art. Give me people that want to dig in the dirt to be a geologist. Give me people that love animals to study other creatures, anthropology. Give me people that want to make music, free them up to make music. If people love to fly, hopefully they become like good pilots. If people want to become teachers, they hopefully become good teachers, but a lot of AI is going to eliminate that. But there'll still be, I think, a subset of humans that will always want a human instructor. But the reason AI teachers come along, the reason AI doctors come along, is that all of a sudden your AI doctor and AI teacher is going to be able to not have any kind of implicit bias. It's not going to be a racist doctor, a racist nurse, or a racist teacher fucking up your education of your child. So there's like a resounding cheer of everyone of color because you have to deal with fucking racism. Your AI teacher can then teach the class more efficiently. Your AI professor at the instructor level won't fuck up the university grades of a black female engineering student. Or like that Chinese American, student in UCLA doesn't have to deal with a racist teacher. You can have an AI instructor teach you better and be more personable, and definitely just outwit the teachers in general. Don't get me wrong, some scholars or academics can be highly adept at whatever they're doing, but fall by the wayside. You're going to have better high school teachers, in the future. 20 years from now, just imagine you have AI teachers teaching high school education to American and U.S. space colonies much more efficiently, freeing you up. Damn, bro, now you just also free people up too. But I think there will also be still a subset of humans that want teachers teaching them classes in space, either way. But I imagine in space you're going to see a lot more automation, growth of vegetation and materials. It's so funny too, because at first I think the idea came from consumption. So it had to do with like, okay, here in America, go to the store, go to the convenience store, buy. A lot of it was conservatism, and forcing women back into the kitchen. A lot of it was conservative assholes forcing women back into the kitchen. And then it's here's your pantry shelf, here's your food that lasts longer. And then we find out later, the very material cans are causing problems in humans. The aluminum from inside of aluminum containers, any kind of food that's in aluminum, is causing Alzheimer's. And we know the problem. It's the body's injection of aluminum causes Alzheimer's. So like aluminum foil, extremely bad. The polycarbons that are generated that are in the food that you eat off it is horrible. And so then we find out the same thing with plastics. Even more super sad. That the very milk that's sitting in plastics, the parts per millions of these shit plastics are getting to your shit food that are then consumed by your child in the morning or by you as an adult. So if your milk is sitting in a plastic container, the very plastic itself degrades. Your water bottles expire because the plastic gets degraded by the oxidation of the water. And that's why your water bottle has an expiration date on it. Extremely dangerous. Even when we were in the desert deployed in the military, if the water is expired, you cannot drink it. We had talk about waste of fucking resources. I'll blow your mind. in the fucking desert. We had pallets and fucking pallets of all this fucking water that is then contaminated. Pallets. You know how big a pallet is? Pallets and fucking pallets of water contaminated because the plastic degrades after 12 months in the sun. It actually accelerated and fucked up a lot of veterans, which is a whole other fucking thing I could talk about. Expired water means that the very plastics degraded into the water, and if you consume that, you're putting into your body very dangerous, powerful plastics that are ripping apart and fucking up your gut. And so the sun and the heat accelerated that. The plastic bottle itself was designed to sit in a temperate, cold climate like this to try to keep the material innate. So anytime oxygen that's applying pressure to plastic is degrading the plastic bottle. Anytime oxygen oxidizes, starts destroying metal, ferrous material. Anytime a plastic bottle has a liquid inside of it and it's sitting out in the sun, the very photon energy is degrading and destroying the plastics and creating a bunch of microplastics into the thing you're about to drink. So, such a shit example of the government fucking up again, too. Deploy to the desert, whole pallets of water, massive pallets of water, destroy. We're deployed. I remember just one time they were like, there weren't any Gatorade. We just didn't have a supply of Gatorade coming to our base, basically deliver Gatorade. And I know Gatorade's sugar water, but it did have a nice source of potassium and salt. Everyone, trust me, bro, when you're in the desert and you're wearing the fucking, I already know there's a freaking going to be a resounding effect of people that are too stupid to understand what's going on. We're in a desert and it's like 120 fucking degrees, 123 degrees, and you're armored up and you have your gear and all that, and you're just like, you just need a fucking Gatorade. Your body needs those nutrients like potassium and sodium, and not really sugar. And water does still do it best, but when there's a problem when the pallets of water are in plastic and the plastic degrades, and we're looking at these pallets, I was like, looking at my commanders and my leadership, I was like, bro, you can't drink this water. I was like, all this water's expired, and like we're months into our deployment. I was like, this pallet must have been sitting here for over a year. It was made 2 years ago and only lasted a year and a half. And then under the sun, it's going to increase the degradation of those plastics into the water. And they had like soldiers drinking it. But I didn't, and I was like, man, it's going to fuck up their health later. Damn. People are like, well, what am I supposed to do? People are freaking out. You can use glass or whatever, You can use glass. And if the glass is thick enough, like this glass, this glass is thick enough, and there's other kind of glass mugs, they last longer. You'd be fucking surprised. If you round out, as long as the glass doesn't have sharp edges, if the glass is thick enough and rounded out, people know this. My bad. The average blue-collar person understands this. Rich people don't. Rich people have thin glass cups or whatever. They're kid-safe, kind of. It can still cause damage, my bad. Heavy glass, if it falls upon a finger or toe, does hurt. But ceramics are a little more fragile, right? Ceramics actually aren't as dense. Ceramics are like a foamy, fragile. Actually, ceramics are like so hard, they're foamy and fragile, and then any kind of force generates. They can't bend or separate or distribute it, and it cracks. Versus, what's so funny? Actually, with glass, it can be so thick, it's actually warping and pushing joules of energy and a nice band wave and a frequency. So yeah. Or what people call like seismic or sonic, or we call it a wave, but essentially it's just joules of energy, measurement of wave over frequency, and it can curve it just enough that it can dissipate that energy force wave in a different direction. Oh, and trust me, people are like, you could, if we need to go back to it, sure, you can build better glass units, or you can build better glass bottles or whatever, glass. Like I would still say, I'll tell you this right now, apple juice that was served in a glass container is going to taste much better than apple served in plastic. I'll tell you that. In my humble opinion, my apologies, in my humble opinion at 1:47 in the morning. But, so yeah. But it's, that's what I'm saying. There's people in 1890 could not conceive anything in 1950 about people being in the sky flying. And then 40 years later, we're already having like fighting jets and bombers flying through the sky. And then now, in 2024, we have 6th-gen fighters that are using electric propulsion engines, flying extremely fast. Not jet fuel. Not jet fuel. We have like electric thrust engines. And the next step after that, instead of electric thrust engines, is ionic propulsion. Or ionic thrust.
5 newtons per kilowatt.
I hate the newtons.
So if we could find a way of powering these devices that didn't require heavy batteries, could these ion propulsion engines be used? Scaling these propulsion methods is not easy, and individual electrode pairs have their limit in the current they can pass between them via ion transport, due to limits in voltage and choked flow within the electric field, just as air can become choked within a constricted pipe. This affects something called the thrust density, which is the area over which the thrust is applied. Jet engines have a very high thrust density at over 10,000 newtons per meter squared, so we can produce a great amount of force with relatively low area. Now, this plane achieved a thrust density of 3 newtons per meter squared, so it is generating very little force over a very large area. We can just about manage to provide enough force with 4 racks and 2 rows of these electrodes hanging far below the wing for a plane this light and slow. The issue here is the same issue that prevents batteries from being a viable solution for planes. Power requirements do not scale linearly with the mass of the plane. They increase
because they're doing ionic thrust wrong. So, but just oh wait, no, that's the wrong.
It's probably the
So you think you know Wix, but do you really?
Oh my god. Plasma channel.
One which worked really well and quite frankly outperformed mine. So I bounced back with my BSI Mark II, which moved twice as much air at twice the velocity. Refusing to kneel to an American, Joel responded with a second design of his own, one that was brilliantly simple and compact. All this back and forth, while super great for competitive innovation, led me to wonder if we're even on the right path. Look, to design a no-moving part ionic thrust airplane, which is my goal, we need to minimize weight and components, not the other way around. And maybe the best way to do that is...
Oh, so energy source. You need a better energy source like our breakthrough in fusion generation tech, which will give you the energy source that you need to power your ionic thrusters. Not bad. This was years ago. 60 Minutes did a decent video on it. 60 Minutes did like 3.5 million views 1 year ago, talking about nuclear fusion and the breakthrough that could change our world. Well, it will change our world. Oh, listen to
Team at Lawrence Livermore National Lab,
National Ignition Facility. Oh, my bad. They go over it like here in a 13-minute video. 1 year ago, Bloomberg original is 2.6 million views. Why private billions are flowing into fusion? Because they realize that the faster we already had the fusion energy breakthrough. The reason billionaires and there's billions flowing into fusion energy is because essentially it's the future of everything. How we're going to do transportation on Earth, how you're going to power cities, how you're going to power aircraft and spacecraft through space. So yeah. I might just heat up some of the food in front of me. It's not that much. I like 2 dumplings, but I'm right at the end of what's it called? I need to where the food is kind of good and not good. Your food can really only be like right around 5 hours. So it's like, yeah, I'm like right at the very edge when like food. Basically, food after 5 hours we throw away from like the restaurant industry perspective. Food safety. I know some people say as long as your food is in a container, it can be up to 7 or 8 hours, but like I'm kind of against that. I feel like once food is open or cooked, from a professional standpoint, usually 4 hours and 30 minutes. From a professional standpoint, officially the state of California, like safety-wise, says I think food after 5 hours throw it away. Like check this out, what's this so dumb? Not dumb, but just food at like 4 hours and 59 seconds. You're 1 minute away. Okay, food at 5 hours and 1 minute. Now you gotta throw it away. Like what was the difference between those 2 minutes? You know what I mean? Are people tracking? Well, hopefully for posterity and people in the future, they'll understand. Super simple when it comes to food safety for being in the kitchen or just in a professional setting. Usually we'll toss the food right at 4 hours and 30 minutes because it's like the safe betting mark. But then like the standard for the state of California, usually the federal government's like 5 hours. So most restaurant workers are like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, after 5 hours, throw it away. But then when you think about it, like not necessarily. You know, I think my mother had broken down to me because she's older, more wiser, and actually has an incredible background in science, being a nurse, and I could pick her brain about science, anything. And she was like, well, no, technically food can go 8 to 10 hours, but she was like, the reason they say, you know, at 5 hours, it's better safety. You know, it's the accumulation of bacteria, not the destruction of the food. And so it comes from, not that your food gets bad, it's the accumulation of other living stuff on top of your food. So that's why your food is usually good 8 to 10 hours, as long as it's in a unit, right? And let's say you cooked and ate it that day, you're just slowing down its oxidation or degradation of the object in the fridge. That's all you're doing. You're trying to slow down the movement of atoms and molecules by, what is it? What is called? The collapsing in density and pulling of negative ion. Continual of that. And then what's the reverse opposite of it? You're creating a whole bunch of heat and energy. For all you thermal engineers out there. And so with food like this, the funny part is my restaurant chef's instincts kick in where it's like literally, like nonchalantly, like, because I'm going to heat up my food in like 5 minutes. It was like this background, like some other chef is like, you know, angels like on my shoulder, like, bro, that food, 5 hours, throw it out or eat it, you know. But then like my science logic brain was like, what the fuck are you doing? It doesn't make any logical sense because the 4 hours and 59 minute versus 5 hours and 1 minute, there's no difference in those 2 minutes. It just has to do with the predicted probable chance of like growth of like other bacteria on your food. So it makes it bad. And explanation from a mother who's older, more wiser in terms of understanding science, is that actually it's you're trying to slow down the degradation of the atoms of the food itself. So by putting food in the fridge, the collapsing negative ions that's created in that space, almost think of it as like negative force upon your food, is trying to slow down the movement of cells. And so it's very creepy and kind of weird. But other than that, theoretically, it makes sense that people love it and enjoy it. That just their food gets cold in the fridge. And so yeah. Oh, and if you're ever using a microwave, and because I already know, oh god damn it, 33% of the population is stupid, and only 60% understand it. Like my father is afraid of microwaves because he has no idea how it works. A microwave is literally shaking the molecules or shaking the water molecules of food that it's basically sitting in a plate or container filled. And so, in order for your food, every other chef and any other person that kind of understands, but hopefully try to educate everyone around us, you need to add water to whatever you put into the microwave, like quite fucking literally. But if it's already a liquid format, then there's enough liquid to move, enough water molecules to move or shake. That's why you put bread in the microwave, it's going to burn. There's not enough water molecules. It's just shaking the current carbon molecules so much they start collapsing upon themselves, or start ricocheting off themselves with not enough energy to dissipate the shaking. So if you put anything in the microwave, you just need to add like little sprinkle of water or drips of water into whatever food you put into the microwave, because it needs water molecules to shake to then have that potential joules of energy rotate somewhere else in its wave bands. And those wave bands are rolling because the Earth is spinning. So, there you go. Other than that, I'm going to heat this food. Oh, alright. I could just play the video when I was
made
done.
the following happen. There's a tiny cylinder here at the end of this that you probably can't see. It's about...
I just heated up some
inside
some
that
leftover,
was a small spherical capsule about half the diameter of a BB.
It's even popping up
192 laser beams entered from the two ends of the cylinder and struck the inner wall.
These are
the capsule. They struck the inner wall of this cylinder.
Chicken, spinach,
and
wontons,
deposited energy, and that happened in less
from this
time than
restaurant that's nearby,
light,
and then vegetable fried rice.
So it's kind of.
I've already eaten a ton of it.
X-rays from the wall impinged on the spherical capsule.
Finishing the last leftover.
Fusion fuel in the capsule got squeezed. Fusion reactions started. This had all happened.
I microwaved it, so it's still a little hot.
But last week, for the first time, they designed this experiment so that the fusion fuel stayed hot enough, dense enough, and round enough for long enough that it ignited, and it produced more energies than the lasers had deposited. About 2 megajoules in, about 3 megajoules out, a gain of 1.5. The energy production took less time than it takes light to travel 1 inch. Kind of fast. So this is pretty cool.
Good.
I have a special message to listeners who want to work on exciting, challenging,
chicken spinach wontons. A little bit of has the like a chili oil. So good, unbelievably good, ridiculously good.
If you've been in a car accident, don't call an attorney. Use this AI app instead. That's what I did, and that's how I got this $250K check in
to incorporate ionic thrusters into the wings themselves. Well, I know a thing or two about plasma, and Peter Sriepel, he knows a thing or two about wings. He's built and flown planes for a decade. So after we shared thoughts, I got to work designing an ultralight wing design with built-in thrusters, printing several iterations, and finally arriving at a weight and power that offered some promise. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. To fully understand this ionic thrust wing idea, we need to go back.
We will, this is today's Tuesday. Now already 2 hours into this stream. What I'll do is
That logic makes sense.
I'll end my stream and restart it. And I'll leave this as like a science section.
Buy Mighty Pit.
She is really down with it. What? Gotta yap a lot to make up for it. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
So what's your answer? Oh, here's that shit ready. That's really good. Running through everybody. What show is this from YouTube?
I would say GoDaddy because you're very experienced on Daddy.
I don't get the Ford off-roading one. Oh, that was good.
Let me update this. Perfect timing. Like literally perfect timing. I didn't even realize perfect timing. So 1 hour 58 minutes. Cut the stream, and then the second stream for today will be YouTube. But she changed it. Didn't she change her title? Hold on. What? Let me. This is the first video. Today, and then let's end the video